Hello, my name is Niall, and I am a poet who writes essays and talks about stuff because the muse has abandoned me. So I've written an essay, and I write essays on my, well, it used to be Substack, but now I do it on Button Down. So it's buttondown.email/NIALL. Niall, that's my name. And what I like to do is, I used to do a podcast to go with my essays, but due to changing the way that I was posting them, it was no longer something that wouldn't cost me money. So I had to change things. So right now, I started it last week, I make a little video, and what I do in the video is I talk through the same ideas that I've just written about, because I think that writing and talking both involve thinking, but both involve thinking in different ways. I think with writing you can finesse your thoughts and get them tighter and perhaps a bit more strategic and censor yourself a little bit as well. Whereas with talking, it's almost like you're catching that vital life of the mind right away. So sometimes I like talking through something because I think that it will just give a different experience, and maybe different things will dislodge from my brain while I'm talking. So this week I wrote about AI, and interestingly, after I published the essay, and it was mainly about the kind of panic or the shock of AI, and how a lot of reporting, actually this isn't just what it was about, but this is how I began. A lot of reporting about AI always focuses on this idea of shock. And so the way in which we're exposed to AI art, AI video, AI writing, AI poetry is normally through that medium of look what it can do now, look at this giant step that it's taken. And I think while it can't be denied that from the outside it looks like a lot of these AIs and these learning models, which is what they really are, have learnt a lot and have developed. But ultimately it's because they create that shock effect. And as soon as we start to inspect things a little bit, that initial shock and the initial kind of overreactions that go with it, they tend to fade away too. So I just so happened, I was in the chippy with my daughter, because sometimes her mate comes into the chippy at a certain time from school, and rather than arrange play dates, we like to kind of have vague plans to kind of bump into each other at the chippy. So we're sat there in the chippy waiting for our food to be cooked, and I start scrolling on my phone, and I've just written this essay, and I just see something which is almost like God's gift. God's gift for this talk, I guess, not necessarily God's gift for the essay, and that was Tyler Perry, the filmmaker, the very successful filmmaker Tyler Perry. He might not be critically successful, but as far as getting butts on seats and people streaming his stuff and just a lot of people watching and liking his stuff, he's massively successful. I don't think that can be debated. But he seems to have gone into the worst kind of shock. I mean, just defibrillator needed level, really, of shock. When he watched the Sora video. If you don't know what Sora is, it's something that OpenAI, who make ChatGPT, who had a bit of drama early in the year when the man who runs the whole thing left, and then he came back because Microsoft, who are a big investor, kind of said you put them back. And then the whole board resigned or something like that. Anyway, it's boring corporate stuff. The interesting stuff about ChatGPT actually is obviously this idea of this moment of shock that gets created by it. Interestingly, again, something else that sort of happened after I'd written the first draft of this essay was that ChatGPT went all Joycean, it went all early modernist, it started writing kind of literary nonsense, started to rebel against meaning. Some people saw it as cause for worry. Obviously there's some kind of bug happening there. A lot of people found it amusing, and it was amusing. But anyway, back to Tyler Perry, because that's the thing that made me sort of giggle in a way, but not. So he had this extension that he was building to his home or his studio, where it was going to cost hundreds of millions, and he had the builders all lined up, and well, according to what I gleaned from the article, I'm not going to go back and read it again right now, but he had the builders lined up, and the builders were going to get to work building this massive extension to his studio. Then he watched the Sora AI video, and he changed his attitude immediately. Now, Sora AI, as I said, it's from ChatGPT. It's from the same people, OpenAI. You enter a prompt, so it's a bit like DALL-E and Midjourney, where you enter a prompt and then they give you an image, but this time you enter a prompt and it could be one sentence and they give you a video. And there's an eeriness to these videos. They look quite realistic and like lifelike. Of course they look realistic, not because they're using the best sort of modeling technology. They're just smooshing together stuff that they found online, real things, real video, real images, and animating it in a certain way. And all the little telltale signs are there. You know, the uncanniness of it is there. And I do wonder, I mean, Tyler Perry watched this video, and well, a lot of us watched the video and went, oh, like that, and we had that moment of shock, like, oh my god, it looks like a real video, until we just inspected the thing for a few split seconds. Tyler Perry decided that he was going to cancel this massive extension, and then he spoke about how, oh, this is rough for the industry. You know, yeah, you got to feel about all these production workers, but the builders, it's really going to hit the builders. And I just thought, but you're the one who's, I don't know how far along he was, whether they were just waiting outside with their little hammers and their overalls and stuff like that, and he just went outside and went, no. Or if he hadn't got to that stage, but it's like, you're the one who's cancelling the building, mate, because, you know, you watched one video, a 10-minute video, which was actually the best stuff. You know, everything selected for this video was obviously the stuff that they felt was good for the public, good for show. And you look at that, and I did feel like saying, Tyler, calm down. Tyler, look at the beaver on the surfboard. Count his toes, Tyler. He's got 11 toes on 1 foot, but it's fine, Tyler. Look at the cat that's prodding the woman in bed on the nose. It's another one of the videos you can watch from the Sora AI demo. Look at the cat. Count the number of legs the cat has. The cat seems to have too many front legs. And the woman who's turning over in the bed, there seems to be what is a disembodied hand that's just suddenly been lobbed onto the bed. I think the AI thinks it's her hand coming over, but it's just sort of appearing disembodied on top of the sheets, not at the edge of the sheets, on top of the sheets, like her hand came off in the middle of the night, and now it's just kind of been flopping about. Maybe the cat was playing with it, probably. The cat was probably trying to wake the woman up to say, by the way, I've just been playing with your hand, it came off, and I've just been knocking it about the bed. And also, I've got too many paws, so maybe you can help me out with this nightmare that we're currently living in. And it carries on. There's two people, and they're walking through this beautiful avenue of blossoms, and yeah, it looks amazing, but it's eerie right away. Why is it eerie? Because at the beginning of the video, these two people appear to be 20 feet high, and then they kind of slowly shrink as they walk along the avenue as well. Now, there's others that I need to check again, but according to the write-ups, there is one of this woman walking through this gleaming neon sort of cyberpunk city, and it looked quite impressive to me, but I didn't really inspect it. But it's meant to be that her legs kind of swap over at certain points. So that's what I would say. I mean, maybe Tyler Perry was actually going to make a film about a free-pawed cat and a woman whose hand comes off in the middle of the night, and another woman who walks through neon cities with her legs swapping over, and two giants who kind of walk along avenues in Japan and then realise, oh, we're a bit bigger, we're standing out a bit here, better shrink down. Maybe that's what gave him the heebie-jeebies. Maybe, and this is perfectly hypothetical, I don't know, this is just me thinking aloud. I don't know how good Tyler Perry is with lawyers. I was going to say maybe he was just looking for a reason to cancel this thing, and he really wanted to kind of, I don't know, spend hundreds of millions on Fortnite dollars or something like that. I don't know, but I don't want to get sued by Tyler Perry, so I'm just going to say that's me joking and being hypothetical. I'm sure he had very good practical reasons and knows more about making films, but at the same time, if he does sue me, maybe I'll get an AI lawyer and then he'll just freak out and go, no, lawyering is dead. I don't know. Away from Tyler Perry. So you can probably tell how I reacted to the Sora videos. In some ways, the Sora videos do look realistic. They look more realistic than when people get sort of de-aged in The Irishman, stuff like that. You know, video effects, video games when we create character faces, even the stuff that's with Unreal Engine 5. It looks very realistic. It looks a little bit more photorealistic in some instances than that stuff, but the only reason why it looks more photorealistic is because it's just taking actual videos and just knocking them, making them noisy, and then cutting back down on the noise again. That's basically what they do, and that's what a lot of the things that we call AIs do. They're models. They're not really AIs. They're not thinking. They're just responding to a request of the thing that has the most likelihood of satisfying that request. And we know this because with ChatGPT and other large language, I keep calling them language learning models because it sounds right, but they're actually called large language models. And I need to remind myself that an LLM means large language model and not language learning model, which for me sounds more correct and agreeable, but it's wrong. So the large language models that are being made, you might notice ChatGPT, stuff like that. You know, they produce stuff that on first glance creates that shock, creates that, oh my God, write an essay. And the essay actually kind of has the right critical tone. But then partway through, if you know about the thing it's writing about, especially if it's slightly specialist, you realise it's nonsense. It's just writing absolute nonsense, and it's just making stuff up on the fly. And when you point it out, it normally gives you the apology and reminds you that it's a language learning model, a large language model. I got it right this time, just about, but too late. Now, there's something that I have always done as my little test of these AIs, of these LLMs, and that is that I will test them by asking them. So I'm just bringing something up on my little iPad. I will ask them to do something for me. I will ask them to write me a sonnet. And ChatGPT has been, and Bard, which is Google's predecessor to its new one called Gemini, they've always been miserable at writing sonnets, in the sense that sometimes I don't even get the right amount of lines. And I often, just to really... to really set a very specific task, I ask it to write a sonnet in iambic pentameter, and it always gives me back something written in iambic tetrameter. So iambic pentameter is, me, I'll get it right this time. Methought I saw my, I've still forgotten the bloody name of that poem. Methought I saw my late espoused saint. Dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That's iambic pentameter. Dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. Now tetrameter sounds more like a song because it's 4 beats. So it's dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. Very much a 4x4. And so it's more song-like and musical, and it doesn't quite have that meditative conversational quality that iambic pentameter has, because you don't get many 5x5 pieces of music. You know, you'll get a 3x3 waltz, boom ba ba boom bum ba, and then you'll have that 4x4 typical pop song, folk song, whatever. So it was giving me tetrameter, this jaunty tetrameter, and I would correct it and say, I'm sorry, but that is in tetrameter. I'm very polite with these LLMs, by the way, because I think even when you ask something or someone to do it, you should say please and stuff like that. But I would point out that's not iambic pentameter, and it would say, oh, I'm sorry, I am a language learning model, and you are absolutely right. But it wouldn't learn. So I'd say, okay, you know it's wrong, correct your mistake. And it would immediately just go straight back to the tetrameter. And it would be this self-flagellation would continue as well when I'd point it out. And I think it's important to realise what this tells us about these AIs, because there's one I want to bring up. So what it tells us about these AIs is that, or LLMs, is that they don't learn from their interactions with us. So sometimes we think, oh, I've taught you something. There you go. Now you've learnt it. And then they can, from that, do the thing you want it to do. No, they're just set out to scrape lots of sources of images and text, and then they have this vast repository, and then they try and give you the thing that's most likely to satisfy your answer from that repository. Now, that said, Gemini came out, so Google launched Gemini, which is its next level of AI, which was its predecessor was Bard, and I asked Gemini to write me a sonnet. I won't bring up the one it wrote me right away, but the sonnet that it wrote me was a Shakespearean sonnet, so it had a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and a final couplet of G, G. So that those letters are called to the end rhyming sounds and which sound it rhymes with. And it did it. And also, it was an iambic pentameter, and it handled the meter well. And so I had my little shock moment. I had my little moment of, oh my God, they can do it. They can do it. And the first thing I think about is my bloody students and whether they're going to submit me these AI sonnets now, and it's all over. But much like the AI essays, you look for these little details and you realise these little moments of the uncanny, and you realise that there is an AI sonnet equivalent of a hand with too many fingers, you know, like the old AI hands from those earlier days of Mid-Journey and DALL-E, when they would either hide the hands or just have these really, really, really not typically formed hands that they would generate for you. And I found that the sonnets that Gemini wrote for me, which I have to doff my cap and say, you know what, you're the first. You've written me an actual sonnet. But at the same time, it still had these uncanny and AI handy type details. I should add, before I begin looking at one particular sonnet and just breaking it down for you, is that someone yelling next door, but I'm just going to keep it in, or maybe I'll cut this bit out. I don't know. I don't care. So one thing I noticed about the one thing I should point out about sonnets is there are no hard and fast rules to any sonnet. There are different ways of writing sonnets. There are Italian sonnets, there are Shakespearean sonnets, there are, I think, Manley Hopkins's Curtle sonnets, which are shorter. They're about 10.5 lines. You've got your 16-line sonnets sometimes. Everyone has a different version of a sonnet. You get unrhymed sonnets like Terence Hayes' American Sonnets, My Future Assassin. And so there's no hard and fast rule for writing a sonnet. Don Patterson, in his introduction to 101 Sonnets, says it's just a 14-line poem and leaves it at that. And then later on he has this wonderful definition where he calls it a wee square box. A wee square poem, a box in which you can place your dreams, which I liked. But I've decided to stick to pentameter because I just want to challenge the language model. So in some ways I was satisfied. It did what I asked. But I'm going to go through this sonnet now. And last week in my previous video, I spoke about the imagination, and spoke about the imagination in a way that we're almost being told by the release of AI headsets and other things where the world vanishes. It's almost like we're being told that our imaginations are broken. So where previous generations were able to, through making art and just through contemplative practices, they could just delve into their imagination without a problem. We almost seem like we need aids for our imaginations, or even worse, we need to strap something to our face and let it create an imaginary world for us because we're no longer able to do it, even though we do it every night when we close our eyes. So I thought I would ask Gemini, for the first few sonnets, I thought I would ask Gemini to write me a sonnet about the imagination. And I thought, because I wanted to know how this language model would, I know it conceives of nothing, it's just a probability engine in some ways, but I wanted to know what it would create for me, and the idea of the imagination that would be espoused by that, while at the same time writing it as a sonnet. So I'm going to read the whole thing out, and then I'm going to take it apart, okay? And I'm going to show you all of these uncanny little elements, and you might be dazzled by this poem as well. But as I say, we're going to get past that sense of dazzlement and shock, and be a bit more reassured about why humans are still going to be writing sonnets for quite a while yet, especially you, my students. So here's what Gemini wrote for me when I asked for a sonnet about the imagination. A canvas waits, unprimed and blank and bare, a brush untried, with colours yet unseen, from slumbering depths a flicker, quick and keen, the spark of thought, imagination's flare. It dips the brush and on the surface paints a world unseen, where logic's hold is frail, where dragons dance and unicorns unveil their hidden realms, where reason's light restrains. It builds anew, with bricks of pure desire, castles of cloud and lovers bold and true. It paints the rosebuds with a richer hue, and fans the dying embers of a fire. This boundless realm, where dreams and truths convene, a boundless power, both savage and serene. You might like that. You might think, okay, that's a sonnet. That's a proper sonnet. And I had that feeling to a certain degree. But straight away, the amateurishness, in a way, comes through. What's amateurish? Amateurish things normally are inversions. So let me go back to it. So colours yet unseen, and lovers bold and true. So you meant that, you're saying unseen colours and bold and true lovers, but in order to make the rhyme, you kind of twist the syntax around and say lovers bold and true. And a brush untried, rather than saying an untried brush. And I explain it to my students by calling it Yoda speak, rather than saying, oh, no one's tried that brush. The Yoda will say, untried that brush is, and so on. And that's how it sounds normally a lot of the time, an inversion. And in more contemporary poems, what you'll find is people avoid inversions because it sounds unnatural, and people are often aiming for a more natural sense of speech within a sonnet or a poem from kind of modernism onwards, from the 20th century onwards. So yes, it's got the inversions. There's also that opening line with the two ands, a canvas waits, unprimed and blank and bare. Now what you would do is you would perhaps have a comma after unprimed, just to have it grammatically correct for a start. So to say a canvas waits, unprimed, blank and bare. The meter still scans, it still has the 5 stresses. It just has what we call a caesura, which is a little gap. So the way that you naturally read it, it sticks to the meter, but now there's just a little caesura, a little gap, which gives a bit more impact to the line. So those are little things that I feel to be amateurish, but we're not here to test for amateurism, because amateurism, it's still a human thing, isn't it? So if the AI successfully creates, or the LLM successfully creates an amateurish sonnet, you could still say it's done its job. It's kind of passing the Turing test. Let's have a bit more light on my face once again and wobble the camera. Okay, so it's because I've still got the screen out. It's really distracting. But I think it's full of things which are a bit more uncanny and have that feeling of the wrong amount of toes, the disembodied hand, the cat with too many limbs, the two giants shrinking as they walk through a cherry-lined avenue in Japan. All of these things are there in this poem if you look out for them. So let's start with, and that's mainly in how the imagery of the poem coheres. What it feels like is it's grabbed these phrases and images from online, smashed them together, tried to kind of smooth over the joins, but it's not tried to think of coherent images that are repeated throughout the poem or developed throughout the poem like a Shakespearean sonnet might. Now, I think it's uncanny because the meter and the rhyme is quite accomplished. It's pulled off pretty damn well, whereas the imagery and other things are more amateurish, and I think the uncanniness is created because normally an amateurish poem is kind of amateurish with the rhyming and the meter as well. It's kind of a full package of amateurishness. So I think that's one thing to look out for if you are asking yourself if this has been written by an AI or an LLM. So here we go. In Realms Unseen. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, that's the first one I got it to write about the unconscious. Oh, another thing. It's really interesting that in other poems I've asked it to write a sonnet about sonnets, and I asked it to write one about the unconscious and one about the imagination, and it's been using the same phrases. So the unseen turns up a lot. In fact, unseen turns up twice in this poem, which is normally kind of another giveaway. So it's drawing from quite a limited pool of things that make up a sonnet. I think that's one of the first giveaways when you read more than one. So if a student submitted something to me and it had unseen in it as a sonnet, I would immediately go, have you been to Gemini? Anyway, we start off with an image of a blank canvas. It's a cliche, but fair enough, it's there, fine. But then it says a brush untried. And I think it's trying to repeat or strengthen the point it's trying to make, which is, everything's new. But the blank canvas is already a cliche, and it expresses that solidly enough. But no one kind of feels that same, at least the image of a blank canvas has a certain feeling, new beginning. We don't kind of go, I have an untried brush. He's starting it with a new brush. It just doesn't work. And it gets weirder when it says, what does it say? There we go. A brush untried with colours yet unseen. Now, colours yet unseen, it can have one of two meanings, can't it? The first meaning is we don't know what palette the artist is going to use. So, okay. It's fine. We don't know what colours Bob Ross is going to use right away, but it's not the most exciting part of that programme, is it? It's not like, Bob Ross commentator there going, he has the palette out and he's going for blue and he's mixing it with yellow. It's not the most exciting thing about a Bob Ross program. The other thing it could mean, though, which is a bit more out there is colours unseen. Maybe it's something that the human eye has never seen. It's beyond the spectrum. To quote that guy at the end of Battlestar Galactica, this tiny slice of the chromatic spectrum that we can make out with these crude gelatinous orbs. Dean Stockwell's character in Battlestar Galactica, if I remember right. Maybe it's about that. Maybe it's things that cameras can't even see. But either way, okay, that's an interesting image. Where's it going to go with it? It just abandons it. It abandons it immediately and moves on to the next image, which is obviously yanked out. It says, the spark of thought, imagination's flare. Spark of thought, another cliche. Imagination's flare, an interesting play maybe. A spark is just that little thing. I know there's always stories, aren't there, about the sniper in the war and about how they're looking out for someone with a lighter. Never get a light because, otherwise they'll shoot you. But the flare obviously is something that does light up a whole night sky. So it's interesting. Thought is like a spark, but imagination is like a flare. Okay. That's actually one of the better moments in this poem. What does it do with this image? Oh, it abandons it right away. Now it's dipping a brush and it's painting. Imagination is no longer a flare. It is now the painter. And there's nothing to kind of cohere. There's no modulation between these images. We've just leapt from one thing to the next thing. So now it's a painter, and it talks about it dips the brush and on the surface paints. So that coheres with that first line, I guess, about the blank canvas. A world unseen. So there's unseen being used again. And I've noticed with a lot of the generated sonnets, it's a bit fond of something unseen and of an inversion as well. So not an unseen world, a world unseen. Okay. Where dragons dance. Oh yeah, so a world unseen where logic's hold is frail. Where dragons dance and unicorns unveil. So logic's hold is frail. Okay. What's the first example? A dancing dragon. Now, I would say that there's something quite logical about a dancing dragon. We see them every Chinese New Year. It's enough for George R.R. Martin to kind of put on a front cover of a book. So it's not really illogical, Logic isn't about whether things exist or not. Logic is about how things cohere together. But then I thought maybe it's being really meta. Wrong company, but you know what I mean. And that actually... it's like, oh yeah, there is no logic in this poem, so maybe it's having its cake and eating it too. I don't know. But then it says, dragons dance and unicorns unveil their hidden realms. And I did think to myself, how does a unicorn, of all the unveil, that normally means grabbing a drape and kind of just like pulling it away. And I'm just thinking, unicorns, hooves. It's like, is the unicorn kind of going up on its haunches? Is it like that, or is it using its teeth, or its horn? Maybe it's using its horn to kind of get a veil and just push it to the side. I don't shake it off afterwards. Run around with a veil stuck to its horn for ages because it can't come off. I don't know. It's a weird image. It's very surreal. Unicorns are unveiling. I mean, it could have said something, unicorns are sail, reveal. I don't know. But unveil, and the verb unveil with unicorn. I mean, again, let's elaborate on that ridiculous image. No, it abandons it right away. They're hidden realms where reason's light restrains. So that's another interesting thing. They say where reason's light restraining things in this realm, because one moment it's where logic's hold is frail, but now reason, which I think is related to logic, it is suddenly holding everything's down again. And also reason's light restrains. Light doesn't normally restrain. It's a weird verb to put with light. So again, unicorns unveiling. Is it going to develop this? No, it's not. Now it's not painting anymore. It's building now. It says it builds anew with bricks of pure desire. Kind of a Blakean twist, I guess. Bricks of pure desire. I don't know what a brick of pure desire is like. I don't know how you guys feel about bricks, whether they're Lego or, clay, but bricks or sandstone. But a brick of pure desire. I mean, it's a weird image again, isn't it? The logic also of brickwork with pure desire. I mean, I wouldn't want to build a building on pure desire. You know what I mean? It's just going to fall to pieces. But maybe that's for lack of logic here. So it says, I keep on going back down to the wrong poem. It builds anew with bricks of pure desire, castles of cloud made out of bricks of desire, and lovers bold and true. But actually, no, it builds anew with bricks of pure desire, comma, castles of cloud and lovers, comma, Oxford, comma, and lovers bold and true. Is it building castles of cloud and lovers bold and true with bricks of desire? Or Is it using those as building materials as well? Is it literally getting the bold and true lovers and just kind of sticking them together? It's not clear in how the poem is formatted. So, and then you think, okay, any elaboration on whether we're building with clouds and lovers and bricks of desire? No, it's back to painting. It paints the rosebuds with a richer hue. Not a bad line. It's kind of one of the better lines in the poem, I think. And fans the dying embers of a fire. I suppose it's maybe the fire is the imagination, and I don't know. Is it fanning itself? Where's the fire come from? I know there was a spark and a flare at the beginning, but that got forgotten and now it's back again. So we go on to the final couplet, which normally the final couplet is the kind of special moment, I think, in some ways. In an unimaginative sonnet or an amateurish sonnet, it tends to just repeat the point that's just been made already. But in an interesting sonnet, like many of Shakespeare's sonnets, it tends to have a slight subversion or a twist or just something that kind of sheds a new light upon it. So this final couplet says, "This boundless realm where dreams and truths convene." I'll read the whole couplet actually. So, "This boundless realm where dreams and truths convene, a boundless power both savage and serene." Boundless, repeated. It's not very elegant. You know, the repetition of boundless, if it was kind of a boundless realm and then a boundless helm or something that rhymed with realm, that would work a bit better with a bit of internal rhyme. But the repetition, you've got a parallelism of the lines. The parallelism is when the structure syntactically is the same in both lines. But then if you have a parallelism, you don't repeat as many words, because that kind of blunts that effect of the subtle effect of the parallelism. So this boundless realm where dreams and truths convene. Convene is not a great verb, is it? Dreams and truths. What are they doing? They're not like uniting. They're not melding. They're convening. There's a bit of a work sort of seminar conference quality to that, isn't there? We will convene in a refectory for refreshments, and then we will reconvene here in the conference room to talk about the latest strategy we have for packaging of cans of bricks of desire. Anyway, so convene is a bad verb to have there. It's not really setting the poem, you know, it's not really going with this whole thing of the imagination. And then it shapes the present. Oh no, that's the wrong bloody... I keep going to the wrong poem. A boundless power, both savage and serene. So it repeats boundless, and then it says savage and serene. And I'm like, yeah, you could say that about the imagination. That's an interesting point. Have you noticed that there's serenities there in the poem? Lots of serene images, slightly absurd, but serene images, dancing dragons and lovers, bold and true, and unveiling unicorns with their little horns, grabbing veils and dragging them to the side. But it's not really, the savagery isn't there, the darkness isn't there. And I think that's another giveaway. I know that Blind Boy has spoken about this on his podcast when he's asked ChatGPT to write something, but there's no unconscious at work. And I think the unconscious, this rich darkness where these images just pop up uninvited, and often that turn for the darker, that slight twist, the slight sadism that we can have sometimes in our writing, by turning things slightly to a darker turn or a more savage turn, as this poem is putting it. But it doesn't, there's nothing there. And I think there's one reason why. These language models, they're not setting out to disturb people. You know, there's always a news story about a language model telling someone how to make a bomb or something like that. They're programmed in such a way that they don't produce objectionable things. Gemini, incidentally, has also been in the news because it was given a prompt to show images of Nazis, and it gave some ethnically diverse Nazis from different ethnic backgrounds, and it's caused a little storm in a teacup over that from different boundaries of a political spectrum that I won't go into. But ultimately, people are very careful who create these things to not create something disturbing, and so that's a lot of poetry kind of right off the docket right away. Yeah, so there's no unconscious, I would say. But also, as I said, it just has this feeling of just this smooshing together of images, and then a crude attempt to smooth over and make the joins less obvious, that I think show it to be an AI sonnet. Now, I have spoken about this. I spoke about this in the essay about when I don't really write a lot of sonnets nowadays. I used to write loads of them. And when I did write sonnets, I would sometimes feel like the sonnet was completing itself. There's almost a sense of determinism about a sonnet, especially the further it progresses. Sometimes if you're using a certain rhyme scheme, the number of words you can use to end a line, obviously they diminish, the choice diminishes. So in some ways you can feel as those options get smaller and smaller as the poem progresses, it almost feels a bit mathematically deterministic. But some of the best sonnets are the ones that break a rule. And they so whether it's the unrhymed sonnets of Terence Hayes, whether it's the strange rhyme scheme of Shelley's Ozymandias, or just all the different kinds of rules that John Berryman's sonnets break, they break a rule because the artist has that vision. The artist has that spark, the artist has that imagination, and will push certain rules aside if those certain rules get in the way of that flow and that completion of that artistic image. And also it's that choice that an artist often makes where the form is leading one way and the initial inspiration is leading another way, and sometimes you just give up and go with the form and see if the form leads you to another place, and sometimes you really try to have that battle and see if there's a way in which you can still push that image through to the very end. And I think that's missing. That tension, that struggle is missing. And I think ultimately any AI art that comes out, that's what it's missing. It's the struggle. It's the struggle that makes the work. Sure, a troubled production can produce many a bad film, but there's many great films also that had troubled productions. An AI version of Jaws will show you the shark in the first reel because the model's working in AI land. Whereas obviously Steven Spielberg had to work around that and create a great work through the limitations that were imposed upon him, where he still had his vision, but he had to adapt to that vision. And I think that's why you ain't going to produce that. I just don't think you're going to produce that in a language model. You will never produce that in a language model. An AI, who knows? An actual artificial intelligence, so like a neural network, something that is actually made to learn in a iterated and present way, that could be different. But then I kind of would have, I wouldn't see a competitor. I would see a contemporary. I'd see someone I'd like to collaborate with. Someone who can lead us all up. I wouldn't necessarily be threatened by it. Tyler, I'm going to end this with an appeal to you. Hopefully what I've just said to you about an LLM sonnet will make you look again at that LLM video as an artist with your own vision. Sod the critics, Tyler. You got a vision, mate. And you have an unconscious that brews up all these images too. Get the builders back in. Build that studio. It's going to be ages until an AI is able to really do the things that an artist can do. Think about the joy you'll create and the employment that you'll create and everything else. Sod Sora. Don't worry about Sora. Tyler. I've never seen a Medea film, but I know a few things about Medea. Sora can't do Medea. Only you can do Medea, Tyler. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I don't have any fancy intro music, and I learnt last week, there's a car horn beeping outside, but I learnt last week that until I start doing proper musical and production stuff, the endings of these are going to be very, very, very awkward. There's a dog outside now. Goodbye.